Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome everybody to the Hockey Think Tank podcast, brought to you by the hockeythinktank.com, a website for all players, parents, and coaches to go to get a little bit of education and a little bit of inspiration regarding the greatest game on the planet. What an episode we have for you guys here today. Jeff is still on paternity leave from the podcast. He is enjoying some presents and some time with his new baby daughter, Sophie Taylor LOVECCHIO, STL, if you didn't notice that. Yep, Fex is an absolute beauty. But he's gone for one more week. He'll be back next week. So I'm just flying solo here today as well. First of all, thank you everybody who's reached out over the past week or so. It was my first solo mission last week. And I talked about just what it takes to be great as an individual and the things that I've learned from myself and my journey, the things that I've learned from being around so many incredible people in and outside of this game. And I've had so many people reach out about that one. And so just really appreciate it. Thank you so much for reaching out and all the positive feedback. And hopefully some of the things that I talked about can help you to be the best version of yourself on your journey. And so thank you to everybody that has reached out. And what we're going to do here today, last week was centered a little bit more on the individual. And today we're going to center it a little bit more on teams. What do teams need to be great and to be the best versions of themselves? And I'm very, very fortunate to have worked with some amazing people. I've won a lot of championships in my day. Very, very fortunate to have been a part of just some really special groups, honestly. And so I've really done a lot of team building in my Hockey Think Tank hat. And I've done a lot of team building with kids at all levels, from the mites all the way up to the college level. And, you know, in a lot of those experiences, I get to learn a lot. I get to talk to a lot of very, very important, awesome people. And I get to learn from them as well. And so what I'm going to talk about today is a champion's mentality. And there are three questions that if you want to be a championship team, I think you need to answer yes. Three questions if you're going to be a championship team that you need to answer yes. And those three questions are: number one, are you the closest team in the country? Number two, are you the hardest working team in the country? And then number three, are you the most resilient team in the country? When it comes to being, I've never been on a team that was not close and won. It's a prerequisite. The tighter you are in the locker room, the tighter you are away from the rink, the more you're going to sacrifice for each other, the more you're going to play for each other on the ice. And so much of what winning cultures embody are the things that don't show up on the scoreboard, just the little habits, the little details, the little sacrifices that you need to make on the ice, sacrificing a little bit of we for the me. Or sorry, other way around, sacrificing a little bit of the me for the we. And the teams that do that really, really well, they win. And I don't think if you're a team that is not close, you're not going to sacrifice for each other on the rink. The teams that are tight knit, they do those little things to the nth degree. So we're going to talk about that. Are you the hardest working team in the country? For me, that has nothing to do with the games. And I know that every championship team that I've ever been a part of, the practices were harder than the games. The practices were harder than the games. And so when I talk about being the hardest working team in the country, I mean bringing that mindset every single day to challenge and compete with each other to be better. That's what championship teams have. That's what championship teams have. I'll tell a few stories about my time at Cornell. I'll tell a few stories about my time, working at Michigan and working at Miami and the other places that I've been around. But you can't be a championship team without a commitment to work by every single individual on the team. Every single individual on the team. And then lastly, are you the most resilient team in the country? Are you the most resilient team in the country. No team has gone from the start of the season to the end of the season without hitting some sort of adversity. Some adversity is bigger than others, but every year, every championship team at some point has had to battle through some tough stuff. And when the tough stuff happens, and we talked about this from an individual standpoint too, you guys have a choice as a team. You can choose to come together, right? You could choose to come together and work through it, or you can choose to point fingers and blame other people and not take accountability. I know I've been on teams on both sides. I've been on teams and coach teams that everybody was in it together. Everybody was in it when the times were tough. And I've been on teams where there was a lot of finger pointing and there was a lot of complaining and moping when times got tough. And there's a very real correlation between coming together in tough times and winning and not coming together in tough times and losing. And so those are the three questions. Are you the closest team in the country? Are you the hardest working team in the country? And are you the most resilient team in the country? If you can answer yes to all three of those questions, you're putting yourself in a position to win a championship. If you answer no to any of the three questions, in my opinion, you have no chance to win a championship. No chance to win a championship. And so what I want to do today is I want to take you through these three questions and how you can develop the types of values as it relates to being close, as it relates to working hard, as it relates to being resilient, and really kind of give you some tools to be able to use with your teams today. Everybody wants to put a banner up in the rink at the end of the year. Everybody wants to put a banner up at the rink at the end of the year. And I think by answering yes to these three questions, you're giving yourself an opportunity. If not, you're not. You're not going to win, and you're not going to be able to win a championship particular. So before we do get over to talking about those three questions, though, there are some people that we have to thank. First and foremost, want to thank our title sponsor, icehockeysystems.com, the best website out there for all of your coaching education needs. We're talking thousands of drills. We're talking whiteboard explanations from some really high level hockey people. We're talking about the ability to go in and digitally draw up your drills and send them out to your team before practice and host a library. We have partnered with Ice Hockey Systems to do an associations platform where you can get this for every single coach in your organization. This is such an unbelievable value add. So go to icehockeysystems.com, look up the associations platform today, and get this for your club. Want to thank Jeff's guys, Train Heroic. It's the app that houses all of his workout explanations. He's got a bunch of different ones, whether you just want to be fit and healthy, whether you want to be an elite athlete, doesn't matter. He's got something for you. He's trained, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people on there online now. He's working with a bunch of different teams. So thank you to Train Heroic. Thank you also to Cured Nutrition. It's a CBD company that Jeff really believes in. He's had a ton of concussions, and this has really helped him to get back to his equilibrium and live a little bit more of a healthier, happier life. And so if you go to curednutrition.com and enter the code GMBM, you will be able to get a discount on some products on that site. Also want to thank Helios Hockey. Helios is an unbelievable product. It's a sensor that you put in your shoulder pads, and it gives you real-time data, real-time feedback on your play. Most importantly, they do a lot with your stride and your stride mechanics and breaking that down. They also have something called a hustle score. So every time you're going, this thing lights up, and not only is it going to give you a little bit of a score on your effort, which the kids absolutely love, but once that lights up, it also pairs with whatever video that you're using, live bar, iPad, camera, whatever. And you get your shifts whenever you're moving, cut up for you right after the game. Unbelievable value add. Wish I had that when I was a player. So go to helioshockey.com. And if you use the coupon code ThinkTank, one word, you will get 20% off your pro annual or your pro 24-month subscription. You can also get this for your entire team. If you go to helioshockey.com/teams, nice little discount for the teams as well by using that discount code ThinkTank, one word. Also want to thank Crossbar. Go to crossbar.org, and I've talked to so many different hockey directors with what I'm doing with the Hockey Think Tank now, and this is such an unbelievable value add for organizations. It's basically a one-stop shop to be able to run the operations of your club. It's a end-to-end software solution. It's a really clean, neat website. It looks great. So again, so many of the hockey directors and the presidents that I work with, they gush over Crossbar, and a lot of them have moved over from Sports Engine, which is a little bit outdated in my opinion, and moved over to Crossbar. And it's got a modern website design, like I said, registration for the season, registration for signups for lessons or drop-ins, just like that. Really, really easy. A club scheduler that can help you with your ice and with your practice schedules. It's got a 5-star mobile app so you can communicate with all the people either within your team or your organization, financial tools and reporting tools, volunteer management, facility and rink management. Like, you go to this place and you're set up. You're set up for the season. And so again, go to crossbar.org. It's a phenomenal resource for all youth organizations. And lastly, want to thank all of you listeners. Thank you so incredibly much for continuing to support our podcast. We are getting dangerously close to doing this thing for 6+ years. That's going to hit in November, and we couldn't have done it without you. And we continue to grind this baby out every week because of the feedback that you've given us, whether it's been through a comment on social media, or even just downloading or rating or following our podcast. That stuff just goes a long way to providing us feedback on how we can get better. And it also goes a long way to talking to the algorithm out there. So when people are searching hockey podcasts, the Hockey Think Tank comes up pretty quickly. And our goal, our mission is to provide as much positive value, as much positivity and perspective to the hockey world as we can. And by doing that, it allows us to continue to grow. And this summer, we were at some points one of the top 10 most downloaded podcasts for hockey in America. We got into the top 20 of the same in Canada, and we want to continue to rise. We want to continue to keep this baby going and continue to reach more people so we can have that positive impact. So anything that you can do in terms of interacting with our podcast, thank you so much. And we appreciate it. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. On our podcast, we always talk about the power of reflection and the power of living life as the best version of ourselves. Well, therapy can help us to reconnect with who we are, what's important to us, and prioritize things that can help us live our best lives. We are huge believers of therapy on this podcast. It really allows us to rethink, reimagine, and reframe much of what is going on in our lives to help us grow into the people that we want to be. And if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, convenient, and designed to fit your schedule. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. TD, Tutty, taking it to the house. Whatever you call a touchdown, they matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. There are a ton of available lines and odds from the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? Score big with the DraftKings Sportsbook app, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms. Here we go. We're going to get to the 3 questions that you need to answer yes to in order to be a championship team. Number 1, are you the closest team in the country? Number 2, are you the hardest working team in the country? And number 3, are you the most resilient team in the country? And so I just got back last week from doing team building with UNLV hockey, and they're one of the top club programs for college in the country. I worked with them last year. They ended up going to the national championship game. They ended up being the runners up. In a couple days, I'm heading up to Milwaukee to work with Milwaukee School of Engineering. They are a great D3 program ran by Graham Johnson, one of my really good friends in the business. Do a great job of going up to do some team and culture building up there as well. And I've probably in the last 4 or 5 years hit between junior teams and college teams. I've probably hit somewhere close to 30. And I think that this stuff is extremely, extremely important. Talent is not the only thing that wins championships. Culture is the most important thing to win championships. You could have the most talented team in the world, but if you can't answer those 3 questions with a yes, you have no shot to winning a championship. And I want to start this off by saying I really believe in this stuff. I really, really believe in this stuff. I've lived it as a player. I've lived it as a coach. I've lived it going in and speaking and working with programs all over the country of all shapes and sizes. But like I said, I've probably done 25 to 30 junior to college programs as well. And there was one year that I did it that I wanted to see, does this stuff actually work? And how is there going to be a way to know that this stuff actually works? And, you know, I appreciate all the positive feedback that I get from the groups that I go in and I work with. But at the end of the day, I wanted some hard numbers. You know, I wanted some wins and losses. Does this stuff actually work? And so I want to give you a couple things. Number one, 1 year that I did this, I had multiple teams bring me in halfway through the year, multiple teams that brought me in throughout the year. And, you know, so I got the chance to actually look at the club's records before I came in and the program's records after. So these were a bunch of different college teams. And, you know, in going in and working with these different college programs, it was awesome to see that before I came in, their records were a combined 15 and 26. And after I came in, the records were a combined 27 and 13. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. The talent didn't change. The players were the same. The coaches didn't change. The coaches were the same. The systems and structure didn't change. You know, I didn't come in and change any of that stuff, but I did allow them and help them to look at their team culture and figure out what some of the issues were and to really work on making some of the negatives to their cultures positive at the end of the day. And so again, this is stuff that I really, really believe in. This is stuff that I really, really believe in. And so as we go through this here today, first of all, if you have questions on any of this stuff, reach out to me, Topher at thehockeythinktank.com. This is my obsession. My obsession is individual and team greatness and how you can be that way. And I love to have back and forth with different people on this. So shoot me a DM on social media or shoot me an email at Topher at thehockeythinktank.com. I love this stuff. And at the end of the day, if I can help anybody to become a little bit tighter as a group, if I can provide any perspective to show you the meaning of hard work and the meaning of resilience, I feel like today we'll have had a success. I feel like today we'll have some success. As awkward as it is to be sitting here talking to a computer screen by myself, actually Steph's on the back end here. So she's with me, but I don't see her right now. But anyway, so this stuff, guys, it works. I've won championships at every program I've been to in college. I've helped teams to win championships. One of the teams that I worked with a few years ago, they were in 8th place when I came in January. I came in during Christmas break, right after, and they were in 8th place. And usually when teams are bringing me in January, they got some issues that they need to fix. And I spent a long time with that group for the day, and they were in 8th place in January, and they ended up winning their league. This is a Division I team. They ended up winning their regular season for their league. And I think they rattled off I think 16 games without, I think they might've had 1 or 2 losses in those 16 games after I came in. And again, same thing. The talent was the same. The coaches were the same. The structure and the systems were the same. It's culture. It's relationships. It's the way you treat each other. And it's answering those 3 questions that I talked about before. And so again, I think this stuff works, guys. And if you have any questions or you have any insight, feel free to reach out because I love talking about this stuff. And with that, let's get to question number 1. Are you the closest team in the country? And I believe I said this last week, but whenever I go in and I work with higher level teams, the first question that I ask when it relates to being close is raise your hand if you've ever won a championship. And if it's a college locker room, let's say half the guys will raise their hands or half the girls will raise their hands. And the next question that I have for them is, okay, for all of you that have your hands raised, keep your hand up if that was the closest team you've ever been on. And very few, if any, hands ever come down. There is a very, very real correlation to how tight you are off the ice, to how hard you're going to play for each other and how much you're going to sacrifice for each other on the ice. And so what we'll talk about here today is why is being close really important and how can you get close as a team? And so when I do my culture building, one of the questions that I always ask the players is if you can have one word to describe your team when it's at its best, one word that will describe your team when it's at its best, what would it be? What would it be? If it encapsulated your entire culture, if you guys were a 10 out of 10 on culture, what's a word that would describe it? And we always get a lot of great words, right? Like accountability, ownership, teamwork, outcompete other teams, things like that. There's so many great answers. There's not one right answer, but I think there's one word that encapsulates it all. There's one word that encapsulates it all. And that word is love. That word is love. I know for every championship team that I've been a part of, there has been a genuine love in the locker room. And so what does that mean? What does that genuine love look like? What does that entail? Number 1, players love coming to the rink. They love being in the locker room. I think there's a real relationship to the amount of time players spend in the locker room together after a practice to how good you're going to be during a game. Like guys just love being in the locker room and being together. And again, when you go back to it, what's the thing that we all miss the most when we stop playing? It's the locker room. It's being with the boys, being with the girls, just genuinely being with each other. So there's a love showing up to the rink. There's a love competing with each other. We're making each other better by how hard we compete with each other in practice. And we're going to talk a lot about that with the second question. There's a genuine love of doing things outside of the rink. Doing team building, whether it's formal stuff, whether it's informal stuff, hanging out together, whatever it may be. There's just a genuine love for not only the different players in the room, but there's a genuine love for the logo on the front of the jersey. There's a genuine love for the logo in the front of the jersey. And I think the closest teams, they all understand the importance of playing for something that's bigger than yourself, playing for each other as teammates. If you're a college team, you're playing for your university, you're playing for your town. If you're a pro team, you're playing for your town and all the families within that city that pay money to come and watch you play. If it's a youth team, playing for your parents, playing for each other, playing for the organization. I think that's something that's lost a lot in today's youth hockey culture where there's a lot of me. What have you done for me lately? And one of our missions in working with so many different youth clubs is to make sure that there's a pride in the front of the jersey with every organization that we work with. And so I think love, I think that encapsulates all of that. And if you have love in your locker room, you're putting yourself on a path to be successful. So couple things as it relates to how you develop a tight-knit group. How do you develop a tight-knit group? Okay. Close teams win championships. Number 1, the more tight-knit you are off the ice, the more you're going to sacrifice for each other on the ice. Number 2, a lot of times becoming tight and earning that tightness, it doesn't happen during the good times. A lot of times it happens during the tough times. And we're going to talk a lot about that. And then number 3, energy is contagious, guys. Energy is contagious. Negative energy is contagious and spreads around like a cancer and a disease, but positive energy is also contagious and that can spread throughout a room pretty quickly too. And when you're in a room of a lot of positive people and people pulling on the same rope, dude, there's nothing better than that. There's nothing better than going to the rink and being around a bunch of people who are pulling on the same rope and who enjoy being around each other. And the first one that we're going to talk about is tight-knit off the ice leads to sacrifice on it. How do you become tight-knit? A lot of it happens away from the rink. And I told this story to the college group the other day, but I was talking to a friend of mine who played a lot of years in the NHL the other day. And I might have said this story on the podcast before, but I gave him a hypothetical. And I said, I'm a big believer that the closer you are off the ice, the better your team is going to be on the ice. And he's like, yeah, I agree. And I go, let me give you an example. All right. You've played in the NHL for a long time. You've been on really good teams. You've been on some pretty crappy teams. You've seen it all. Answer me this question. You go out on the road, right? You go out on the road, you're on a road trip for 5-6 days. You get into a city in the afternoon and you decide, we're going to do a team dinner somewhere, some kind of team dinner. It's going to be informal. You can go if you want, but it's not anything big. Do you think there's a correlation between when you send that text out that, hey, we're having dinner at this steakhouse? Do you think there's a correlation between how many guys show up at that steakhouse to how good your team is going to be? And he kind of thought about it. He was like, you know what? That's yes. Yes, 100%. Like the more players go to team functions and the more players want to be around each other in the informal times, like that is everything. It's everything. And so one of the things that I work with some of the college teams, especially, is like everybody's got to go and everybody's got to be invited. The worst thing that could ever happen to a team is clicks. And what happens when there's clicks? How does that happen? Well, everybody's got different agendas, and some people like doing some stuff. Some people like doing other stuff. People don't invite each other to different parties or different things that they're doing. And that's just never healthy for a culture. So I talk with teams like, if you're doing a team, like everybody's got to go. Everybody's got to go. And you don't have to go the whole time. You don't have to be the life of the party or anything like that, but you got to show up. And because when you show up, you're telling everybody that being a teammate is important. By not showing up, you're kind of telling people I'm on my own page. And so whenever you guys have team functions, I think the best teams, everybody goes and everybody's together, right? So that's number one. Everybody's got to be invited. Everybody's got to go. The more things that you do together as a group, the tighter you're going to be and the more you're going to have success on the ice. The second thing I want to talk about, and I've told this story many times before, but this has to do with my first day on campus at Cornell. My first day on campus at Cornell, I was instructed 10 minutes before I got there to call one of the upperclassmen on the team and let them know that I was 10 minutes away. So I get 10 minutes away. I call the upperclassmen. And when I show up at my dorm, there's 5 Cornell hockey players waiting for me. I didn't touch a box. I didn't touch a bag. I didn't touch anything. They took all my stuff from the car, brought it up into my dorm room, and then came down. And within 10, 15 minutes, I was hanging out at the hockey house with the fellas. And it was, I call it a quote unquote initiation, but really it was welcoming me to the team. And it was showing me as a freshman, as a rookie, that I was in it with them. This is a team who's a culture all about service. And just when you do things for other people and you have that mindset as a group and you're welcoming in the new players and there's no veteran rookie, there's no senior fret, like we're all on the same team. Those are the types of teams that I've been on that have gone on to do great things, right? They've gone on to do great things. And so just that quote unquote initiation, the welcoming into the newcomers, that everybody's on the same playing field. You look at the book Legacy. If you haven't read the book Legacy, it's all about the culture of the All Blacks, the New Zealand rugby team. And the first chapter of that book is called Sweep the Sheds. And what that chapter is all about is who sweeps the sheds, who's in charge of making sure that the shed with all their equipment is clean. It's not the rookies. It's the veterans. It's the leaders. And that's the culture that they're trying to portray. And that's the culture that they're trying to live, is that we are selfless servants, right? It's not about us. It's about serving the team. It's about the team. And so making sure that everybody feels welcome and a part of it. It's an environment where everybody feels like they can be the best version of themselves. It just goes a long way to building that culture, having a tight-knit group. And then the last thing, bench energy. Bench energy. I am a big believer in bench energy. If you've listened to this podcast for long enough, I talk about it a lot. And again, I've been on teams that have great bench energy, positive, energetic, uplifting, always up with block shots and when people take hits to make plays and stuff like that. And I've also been on teams where there wasn't great bench energy. And again, there was a very real correlation between the tightness of the group and how awesome the bench energy was. The teams that weren't very tight, it was quiet. There wasn't a lot of encouragement. It was just kind of dull, or negative even. The teams that have been championship teams, the benches were awesome. It was uplifting. Like everybody was in it together. There was cheering when little sacrifice plays happen. And so, the closer you are off the ice, the better your bench energy is going to be, and the more you're going to have success on the ice. So again, being tight knit away from the rink leads to sacrifice and better team play on the rink. One other story, again, I was so spoiled. I was so spoiled at Cornell. One of the things we also did, going along with some of these lines, was once a week in the preseason, you got it into a group of 4. And in that group of 4, there couldn't be people of the same class. So it had to be people in different classes, and you would just have to go do something. You could go bowling. You can go get dinner. You can watch a football game together. There were so many different things that you can do. And then every week it would change. And you would go and you would do an activity with another 3 new guys. And then the next week it would change. And the point was just to get to know everybody on a deeper level, And with that, there's a team building activity that I've done with teams in the past. And this, again, it's about getting to know each other, right? Away from the rink. And we've done a team building activity. It was called Best Day, Worst Day, where the team got together and you would talk about the best day of your life and you would talk about the worst day of your life. And people shared a lot of great stuff, best days, and people shared a lot of tough stuff, worst days. And it really galvanized and brought people together. You got to know people on a much deeper level. And I've done this with 3 different college teams. And every time we did this with the college teams that I was a part of, we went on a run. We went on a winning streak after that. Guys, there's such a correlation between the tight knit of a group and winning. It's not even funny. And so hopefully that's coming across on this. And hopefully these are some things that you can use potentially with your teams today. The next thing I want to talk about is I'm a big believer that becoming close as a group, it does happen in kind of like prepared moments, like we've talked about the Cornell initiation, where the guys were bringing up my stuff into the dorm, and the Cornell 4 different guys, going on an activity together and then switching it up. There's certainly a lot of place for that. And that is a big, big, big deal. But I'm a big believer that the times that can create the most opportunity for becoming close as a group is during adversity. It's during adversity. And, you watch The Last Dance with Michael Jordan and the Bulls, which most people have. How much adversity did they hit before they won their 6 championships? It was absolutely insane. A lot of teams, you even look at the Florida Panthers this year, you got to lose before you win. And so I think that the best teams find a way to come together in tough times. They find a way to come together in tough times. And I've been on teams where the tough times come, the adversity comes, and it's a lot of complaining. It's a lot of finger pointing. And I've been a part of teams where when the tough times come, man, we just rally around each other and we get better. And these are things that we need to be talking about as leaders with our teams all the time. Hey, rough waters are going to come. How are we going to handle it? Are we going to choose to see the good in it? Or are we going to choose to mope and point fingers and make excuses, and then the culture is just absolutely going to die? And so understand and speak with your team and prepare them that when the tough times come, that's an opportunity to become closer as a group by coming together. It's an opportunity to be closer as a group by coming together. And so just a couple of examples that I want to share of some teams that I've been a part of that have been able to do this. And I've told this story before on the podcast, but my year at the University of Michigan, we had a player named Steven Holtz. And Holtzy, during I think it was November, he got a really nasty infection that attacked his nervous system, went all over his body, and he ended up in a coma. And we didn't know for 5-6 days if he was going to live or if he was going to die. And it was really, really tough times. We didn't care about hockey. We just wanted to make sure that our guy Holtzy was okay. He ended up coming out of it. He ended up setting a goal that I want to get back this season. And we thought he was crazy. We thought he was crazy. He was just in the hospital for a long time dealing with this infection. And sure as shit, Holtzy, he worked and he worked. I mean, I'm talking this kid, he didn't know who a lot of us were in the locker room. He lost a ton of his memory. He had to relearn just the most mundane and everyday of motor skill activities. But he worked and he worked and he worked and he worked, and he ended up coming back that year. And it was the team rallying around him, like we were there for him. The players particularly, like they were awesome in being there for him and supporting him on his journey. As coaches, we tried to do the same thing. And ultimately he showed so much resilience, and it was such a tough time for him, but it was a great example for everybody else on just the power of getting through a tough time, man, And this kind of like the second part of that story is we're playing against the University of Minnesota in the Big Ten championship game later that year. And we're tied 2-2 in the third period. We're 2 minutes into the period, and Minnesota scores this absolute highlight reel goal. One of their players comes down and he just kind of undresses our defenseman and ends up scoring with 18 minutes left in the game to go up 3-2. And Mariucci was nuts. 11,000 fans just absolutely going out of their mind, all the momentum on their side. And it turns out that defenseman that got walked on our team was Holtzy. It was Holtzy. And when I tell you guys that the last 18 minutes of the game were probably the best 18 minutes that our team played all year, I'm not exaggerating. And we ended up coming back. We tied it 3-3, and then we went up 4-3, and we ended up winning the Big Ten championship that year. And I think a big part of the reason why we played the best 18 minutes of our season was because there was no way in hell that our players were going to allow Holtzy to have that memory of us losing that game and him having that memory. Now, the memory for Holtzy was going to be hoisting up the cup in the locker room. The memory for Holtzy was going to be hoisting up the cup on the ice in front of his friends, in front of his family. And it's a moment I'll never forget. And, tough times create strong teams. Tough times create strong people, and tough times create strong teams. Another story that I think goes along with this, and I've told this story on the podcast before, but one of the people that I respect a lot in this business is a guy named Reed Cashman. And Cash is the head coach at Dartmouth now. He's been an assistant with the Washington Capitals, but at the time of this story, he was an assistant coach at Quinnipiac. And this was years ago when Quinnipiac was just a small school out east. They weren't national champions by any means yet, and they were just kind of out of D3, coming into D1. And whenever I would go down to Florida for the college coaches convention every year, I would find a coach that won a championship that year. Just ask him why. What was it about this group? What was it about this team that you think made you a championship team? Just for my own personal development. And I remember having a conversation with Cash one year that I was down there, and he told a story about his Quinnipiac team that made the national championship that year. Again, they weren't the Quinnipiac of today. They were lesser known and didn't have the talent, but they made the national championship game. So what was it? And he goes, you know what? I don't know if there's any one thing, but there's a story that I think encapsulates it all. And the story is they're going into Yale, which is their heated rival. Every time they play against Yale, whether it's at Quinnipiac or at Yale, it's it's crazy. The fans are nuts. It's sold out. It's a great rivalry. And they're going into Yale, and they go down 3-0 in the first 5 minutes of the game. Adversity, right? They go down 3-0 in the first 5 minutes of the game. And so they call a timeout, and Cash looks down his bench, and what does he see? Right? What does he see? He sees great body language. He sees all positive talk. No problem, guys. 55 minutes left to go. We got this. We got this. He sees accountability and ownership. That's on us. That's on us. Guys are saying that's on me. That's on me. And really the team took control of the bench. And they came back to win that game, and they went on to the national championship that year. And he was like, honestly, that's probably the reason why, in tough times, like our guys came together and they took control of the team. And what I will tell you is all the championship teams that I've been on, particularly at the higher levels, like the team ran the team. The coaches didn't run the team. And the only way you can have that is if you have a tight knit group in the locker room, and guys are not afraid to be held accountable. Guys are not afraid to speak their mind. It's a necessary thing if you want to win a championship. That tight knit group, it leads again to a great bench, and it leads to championships at the end of the day. And so as we continue with this here, the last thing I want to talk about is energy is contagious. Energy is 100% contagious, and negative energy spreads through a room just like positive energy does. Negative energy probably spreads faster than positive energy does, because it's really easy to be negative, and it takes some work. It takes some work to be positive, especially in tough situations. And so when it comes to energy being contagious, I'm a big believer in that some of the most important conversations that have happened within a team happens outside the rink in informal settings. When players are eating lunch together, when players are eating dinner together, they're on the road together, they're playing video games together, whatever it is that they're doing, those conversations are so important, because those conversations are really the lifeblood and the fabric of a lot of teams. And if there's a lot of negativity in those conversations, your team's hooped. You're absolutely hooped. If there are players that are consistently whining and complaining about their role on the team, or being out of the lineup, or I should be playing in front of this guy or that girl, that's recipe for disaster, because that stuff spreads so quickly throughout a locker room. And at the end of the day, in a college locker room, you get 27, 28 players and only 21 can dress. And so you're going to have unhappy campers, but are those unhappy campers bought into the vision of the team? Do they feel like they're a part of the team? And one of the biggest things that I talk about with teams when I work with them is accountability to those situations. And are you being a good teammate if when your best friend is whining and complaining and bitching about anything and everything under the sun of the raw deal that they're getting? Are you a good teammate if you just agree? Or you just enable? Or are you a good teammate if you look at that person and say, you know what? If you got a problem, go talk to the coach. Or if you got a problem with that player, let's go deal with it. The worst thing that can happen for a team is dissent in those informal conversations that happen away from the rink, because again, that stuff spreads. And so when I work with teams, we talk about how healthy those conversations are, those informal conversations are away from the rink. And we talk about how important it is that when people are being really, really negative, we don't enable. We got to stop that in the tracks, because not only is that going to spread throughout the team, but if you actually want to do good to your buddy who's being so negative, do you think you're being a better teammate by just not saying anything? Or do you think you're a better teammate by addressing the concern and saying, hey, you're being really negative right now. Let's fix it, instead of just whining and complaining. And so that's a hard thing to do. That's a really hard thing to do, but I think it's a necessary thing to do. And a lot of that comes down to accountability. And when I work with teams, accountability is everything. It's absolutely everything. What's more powerful, when your teammates hold you accountable or when your coaches hold you accountable? And when the policing of the room happens within the room, that's a recipe for a championship team. So when I work with teams, we talk about accountability, and there's three things that we talk about. Number one, it's really hard to hold your teammates accountable. Right? It's really hard to say no, or when your teammate's being negative, to say, cut it out. Like, let's find a solution. Those conversations away from the rink that we just talked about, it's really, really hard to stop that and to tell your friends, hey, like, you need to be better. But again, you're doing your teammate much better service by nipping that in the bud than you are to just enable it and let them continue to go on complaining and complaining and complaining. So number one, let's just have a recognition that it's hard. Number two, it's got to be authentic. Everybody likes to hold people accountable in certain ways, and everybody likes to be held accountable in certain ways. And the tighter knit you are as a group, the more you get to know each other, the more you're going to understand what type of accountability people need. And I tell a story about when I was a freshman at Cornell. When I was a freshman at Cornell, I was having a really tough practice one day. And a lot of it had to do with stuff that was going on away from the rink. And I had my captain, a guy named Mike Knopfler. He came up to me, he put an arm around me, and he said, "Hey, dude, everything okay?" And I was like, "Not really." And he's like, "All right, let's go get some dinner afterwards." Right. And so we did. We went to dinner and I shared what I was going through. He shared some of the similar experience that he went through and how he got out of it. And it was like £1,000,000 weight lifted off my shoulders. And now I came back to practice, refreshed the next day, had a great practice. And he was like, "Hey, he was there for me. He held me accountable in his way." And his way was to put an arm around. There's other guys that can be stern with people. There are other people who can get in people's faces. You got to understand your best way of holding people accountable. For me, that's the Mike Knopfler way. And that's building the relationship, taking you out to lunch, finding the positive. It's not getting in your face. I've tried that before and failed miserably as a leader and as a coach. And so you got to be authentic in the way that you hold people accountable. And then lastly, and I actually make the groups that I work with take a little bit of a pledge here with this. And that is, number one, I ask the question, do we all agree in here that holding each other accountable in this room is really, really powerful? And everybody says yes. And then the second thing that I ask is, can we all come to a consensus right now then that it's not personal? If somebody's holding us accountable to the high standards that we've set as a team, it's not personal. What are they just trying to do? They're just trying to make me better. They're just trying to make me better. And so accountability is everything. Self-accountability, number one, but then understanding that it's difficult, understanding that it's got to be authentic to you, and understanding that when you're being held accountable, it's not personal. We're just trying to make each other better. That creates a lot of tightness within a group. It creates a lot of tightness within a group because now everybody understands what the standards are of how we're going to behave and how we're going to work. But more importantly, everybody's holding each other to those standards. And when you do that, that means practices are better every day. That means behaviors and relationships are better every day. And that ultimately leads to closer groups, which in turn leads to championships. So that's going to be the longest one that I talk about here today, guys. But it's for a reason. I think this is a building block. Like if you're not tight as a team, you have no chance. You have no chance to win. You have absolutely zero chance to win a championship. You can fake it for a little bit and you can go on streaks because of your talent. But at the end of the day, like if there's not that love that we talked about within a room, you don't have a chance. So what kind of effort, if you're a coach that's listening to this, or you're a leader on your team that's listening to this, what kind of effort are you putting into making sure that the relationships are tight within the room? What type of team building events, what type of just things are you doing outside of the rink? How is the locker room? Do people feel great about being in the locker room? Guys want to be in there. Like that stuff is really, really important. So what kind of time and effort are you putting in to make sure those things are being addressed and really, really elevated within your room? That stuff is really, really important. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is, are you the hardest working team in the country? And when I say, are you the hardest working team in the country, I do not mean during games. I mean in the gym and I mean in practice, because you cannot flip a switch. If you're not a hardworking team away in the gym or in practice, you're not going to be a hardworking team during games. Habits are habits. And you really have to, like, honestly, the most selfish thing that you can do as a player on your team is not bring your best effort in practice, because you're not making your teammates better. If I'm going on a one-on-one battle with my teammate and my teammate is not giving his best effort, he's not preparing me to battle in the war of the game. And so being the hardest working team in the country, that starts in the gym, that starts in practice. It starts in the gym and that starts in practice. Are you working to the standards of your team? Are you making your teammates better with your consistency and your work ethic when you're at the rink? And I know, and I said this before, the championship teams that I've been a part of, I'm not joking, guys, the practices were harder than the games. They 100% were harder than the games because we competed against each other so incredibly hard in practice that other teams could never match that intensity. And I've said this before on the podcast, but I had a team one year where our motto was nobody knows. And what we meant by nobody knows is nobody knows how hard we work against each other when the lights are off. Nobody knows how hard we work against each other when the lights are off. That's the hallmark of every championship team that I've been a part of, is that the practices were absolute wars. Absolute wars. And so I have a couple things that I want to talk about as it relates to how to develop that work ethic within the group. And first of all, it starts with your leaders. It starts with your leaders. If your best players and your leaders are not hard workers, you have zero chance of winning a championship. You have zero chance of winning a championship. If your best players and your leaders are the hardest working people on your team, what that does is it raises the standard for everybody else. Because if your most talented players are working that hard, everybody else has no choice but to follow that lead. And so, number one, it has to start with your best players. It has to start with your best players and your leaders. And so, you think about all these Stanley Cup champion teams, like they were all led by great, hardworking leaders. You look at like Barkov and Kachuk with Florida, just absolute dogs. You look at like the dynasties. You look at like Taves and Kane and Keith and how hard they worked with the Blackhawks. You look at like Kopitar and Doughty and Dustin Brown and Jonathan Quick with those LA Kings teams. You look at Crosby, right? Crosby, multiple championships with the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's been well documented how hard of a worker he is. And like same thing, like all the best teams that I've been a part of, the best players were the hardest workers. I look at my time at Cornell, like Matt Molson. If you haven't listened to that podcast, he was our captain. He was our best player. He was also our hardest worker. And we won championships with him in that helm. And I look at my time at Michigan. You look at Adam Fantilli. Holy crap, Gavin Brindley, like these guys worked so incredibly hard and were so competitive in practice. It just brings out the best in everybody. And so I think number one, it starts with your top guys. Again, if your top guys are your hardest workers, you got a chance. If they're not, that's tough. That's tough to win. At least it's tough to win consistently. The next thing I want to talk about, and honestly, like we talk about this so much, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but man, how you do anything is how you do everything. How you do anything is how you do everything. And, the best teams that I've been on, honestly, I'm talking about as a player now, because I wouldn't really know this as a coach as much, but like we competed with each other in everything. Like we just had competitive people, like, so whether it was video games, whether it was basketball, whether it was board games, whatever it is that we were doing, like guys just wanted to win. And we were going to the nth degree, working as hard as we can, whether it was on the ice or off the ice, to be the best versions of ourselves and to have that competitive spirit, to have that competitive environment. And so, the Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul, he has some unbelievable quotes and unbelievable videos as it relates to that. And there's this one video, it's of him. He's talking to the University of Alabama football team. And he talks about, if you want to do something excellent, you have to be excellent all the time. It's a way of life. And when excellence becomes a habit, that's just who you are. And so that's why it's so important to be close. And it's so important to have accountability in the room. We talked about in the are we the closest team in the country question? Because then you're holding everybody to those high standards. And when everybody is held to those high standards, especially when the accountability is coming from within the room, then those high standards becomes a habit. And then you're an outlier if you're not giving it your all in practice every day. When excellence becomes a habit, when every day consistently you have a group of players that compete incredibly hard against each other, that's just who you are. When excellence becomes a habit, that's just who you are. And that's why I'm a huge believer in playing games in practice. That's why I'm a huge believer in having a score or a competition and every drill that you do. It brings out that competitive nature in everybody. And it goes a long way to making sure that everybody is working to the standards that you guys set as a team. And it's a special sauce. It's part of the special sauce for championship teams. Another video that I do a lot when I do my team building it's about Steph Curry. And this guy is talking about how Steph Curry, wasn't the best player coming out of high school, wasn't the best player coming out of college. But the reason that he knew that he was going to be the best player in the NBA was because of his work habits. And two quotes from that video really stood out to me. And those quotes are: success is not an accident, success is a choice. And are the habits that you have today on par with the dreams that you have tomorrow? And I said this in the, I've said this in the last week's talk that we did on more tailored towards the individual, but like the magnitude of your work ethic has to match the magnitude of your dreams. The magnitude of your work ethic has to match or exceed the magnitude of your dreams. And so if you have a dream as a team to win a national championship, your work ethic every day better be of the caliber of being a national championship team, right? The magnitude of your work ethic has to match or exceed the magnitude of the dream that you have as a group. Every day, is this a national championship mentality? Are we bringing it to the best of our ability? Are we competing extremely hard against each other to make sure that the games are easier than the practices? We have prepared ourselves so hard to be able to be a national championship team every day that the result inevitably is going to be a national championship. Focusing on the journey, focusing on the process, focusing on working and competing against each other as a team. That is a huge, huge part of raising up the banner and lifting up the trophy at the end of the year. It's all about making each other better. Again, the most selfish thing that you can do as a teammate is to not bring your best in practice, because then it doesn't translate and you're not making your teammates better, right? So, number one, your team's got to be close. Number two, there has to be a dogged effort from everybody to be the hardest working team in the gym and the hardest working team in the practice rink before you can get to the games. How you do anything is how you do everything. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about here is, are you the most resilient team in the country? That's another question that you have to answer yes to, because from start to finish in a season, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be unhappy players. There's going to be things outside of your control that you never even have thought of to prepare for that are going to happen throughout a season, that you have to be resilient as a group. And the way that you become resilient as a group is by coming together in the tough times. I've been on teams where when the tough stuff happens, it's excuses, it's finger pointing, it's blaming. Not only do those teams not win, but those teams don't enjoy being at the rink every day. I've also been a part of teams where when the tough stuff happens, everybody comes together. Everybody takes ownership of the situation, and everybody comes together as a group to help each other get through the tough times. And so the first thing I want to talk about as it relates to that is, as a leader, as a coach, can you create conditions in practice? Can you create conditions within a gym? Can you create conditions in the locker room even that make it hard? And I love listening to Nick Saban. If you haven't seen Training Days, it's on ESPN Plus. It's a documentary of basically going through the preseason training for Alabama football. And Nick Saban talks about making it hard. He talks about making it hard. Again, we got to make it hard, so when the tough stuff comes during the season, we're already prepared as a team to come together through the tough stuff. And Alabama football training camp, it's hot, it's long, it's crazy. You'll have to work extremely hard. There's long hours, and they do it for a reason. They do it for a reason because they want to prep the guys to when it's hard. Nobody's making excuses. If guys are making excuses, they're going to be put in their place. And we come together during the tough times to come out bigger on the other side. So can you create what I call constructive tension at times within the team during the preseason, right? To make sure that you're educating and you're putting the team in situations where they're going to have to come together and then talk about it. And I want to give an example of this. And I know excuse me. I know I've talked about this before, but our strength coach at Cornell is the man. He's the absolute man, one of the best I've ever seen. And one of the things that he would do every year is we would have what was called Stadium Day. And Stadium Day was the hardest workout that we were going to have the entire year. You know, you go out to the football field, you're running the stadium steps, you're doing a lot of other stuff on the field, and it's the hardest workout I've ever had. Every single year, it's the hardest workout we've ever had. And the coolest thing about Coach Howley is we'd go through that entire workout, and then we'd come together as a team, you know, at the end of it to kind of put all our hands together and say 1, 2, 3, big red. And then after we said 1, 2, 3, big red, and we all thought that we were done with the hardest workout we've ever had, he blows the whistle and says, get back on the line. Get back on the line. And what he was doing is he was providing and creating an opportunity where something out of our control happens that really sucks. And how was our team going to respond? Were we going to whine? Oh, we were done. Oh, this is BS. We were done. We just had our hardest work out of the year. Or is it, well, here we go. Here's some adversity. Let's get back on the line. We're going to get through this. Let's go, baby. Let's go. And it taught us every year that when that happens, we had to come together as a group. And every year we had to hold people accountable for whining or complaining. Hey, this isn't the standard here. When tough stuff happens, we come together and we get through it. We work together. And I always love that. And so what happens? Like, again, sometimes people complain when it's hard, and then that leads to guys not being tight, and it just leads to not a great room. What happens when it's hard? You have to make a choice as a team in the way that you treat each other. And this is something that you have to talk about at the beginning of the year and continually talk about. When the tough stuff happens, what's the choice that we're going to make? Are we going to come together? Or are we going to break apart? Are we going to come together? Or are we going to break apart? I think the more you talk about that up front, when the tough stuff does happen, you've already had those conversations. If you've created that constructive tension in the preseason, you've already been through some of those situations, and always have that communicating. It will always be in the back of the players' minds. It's going to be in their subconscious. We're coming together, baby. We're coming together during these tough times. And you talk about that choice, right? Number two, like, success and failure are on the same road. Success and failure, I said this last time, success and failure are on the same road. One just has an earlier exit. And it's the same for a team as it is as an individual. If you continue to stay together and stick together down that road, right? Most teams, when the tough stuff happens, like, they're going to come unglued. It's human nature. It's way easier to come unglued and to think about yourself and not think about your teammates and whine and mope and complain. The best teams, they stay together for longer. And they outlast other teams because everybody goes through adversity throughout a season. The teams that stay together the longest, those are the teams usually raising the championship trophies and putting the banners up in their arenas at the end of the year. So sticking together on that road, again, the road, it's the same road, success and failure. One just has an earlier exit. So that's another thing. And then it's just coming together. It's just coming together during those tough times. And again, creating those opportunities for that constructive tension and making that choice every year. It's everything. Like, every year there's going to be adversity. I can think back to every championship season I've ever had, and there was adversity multiple times. But the difference between those teams and the teams that didn't win were coming together during those tough times. And hopefully I've given you some avenues. Hopefully I've given you, some things that you can do with your team to help create that togetherness when the tough times come. So at the end of the day, with your team, if you can answer three questions in the affirmative with a yes, are you the closest team in the country? Are you the hardest working team in the country? And are you the most resilient team in the country? If you can answer all three of those yes, you're putting yourself in a position to do some really, really special things at the end of the year. If you cannot answer all three of those questions yes, then you are not going to win. I'm just telling you, you are not going to win. And so hopefully what I have done here today is I have given you some perspective on that. And I have given you some tangible things that you could potentially do to make sure that you are training your team and giving them the knowledge, giving them the insight to understand that these three are extremely important. And there are things that you can do to make sure that you answer yes to these questions at the end of it. Guys, this is my why. I love working with teams on making sure that the answer to these three questions is yes. So reach out to me, Topher at thehockeythinktank.com. I would love to work with you. And again, like, send me some feedback. What am I missing? What are some things that you've been a part of on some championship teams that I didn't put in here? I'm sure there are things that you've seen that have led to championships or have led to not winning a championship on the other side that I can learn from you. I would love to hear what I missed, and I can incorporate into the teams that I work with as well. And so again, like, I've been very, very fortunate to be a part of some really special groups that have put up some banners in a lot of different places. And hopefully some of this stuff that I've learned through my experience and with working with so many other teams can help you to do the same. So I really, really appreciate your time. Our guy Jehu Vex, the tap man himself, LOVECCHIO, Mr. Dad right now. He will be back next week. I don't know if I can do another week just on my own. My throat is absolutely killing me from all this talking that I'm doing right now. But we appreciate you guys. Reach out, and hopefully you can use this stuff with your teams today.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.